In 2008, a Saudi prince dared to outdo Dubai, planning a tower so high it would eclipse the Burj Khalifa and anchor a new future for Jeddah. But this monument to ambition, meant to embody Vision 2030, stalled in silence for years. Now, as construction restarts, the world is left asking, can Saudi Arabia's Jeddah Tower truly rise above its setbacks and rewrite the skyline? Or will it become the tallest abandoned dream on Earth? In the years after the global financial crisis, Saudi Arabia's ambitions began to take a new shape. In 2008, Prince Al-Walid bin Talal announced plans for a structure that would stand taller than any building on Earth, a tower meant not just to break records, but to anchor a new era for Jeddah and the nation. This vision was more than architectural bravado. The tower would serve as the crown jewel of Jeddah Economic City, a district conceived to pull the country's future beyond oil, drawing international business, tourism, and investment to the Red Sea coast. At the heart of this push was the promise of Vision 2030, a national strategy calling for economic diversification and global prestige. Plans for the tower moved quickly from drawing boards to boardrooms. Major investors, Kingdom Holding Company, Baksh Group, and Sharbatli Group joined forces, while engineering firms raced to design a structure that could rise over 1 kilometer into the sky. By 2013, the first concrete was poured. Excavators dug deep into the Red Sea soil, laying the foundations for a skyscraper that would climb higher than the Burj Khalifa by nearly 200 meters. The groundbreaking ceremony drew dignitaries and media from around the world. For Saudi planners, this was more than a construction milestone. It was a public declaration that the country was ready to compete on the world stage, and that Jeddah would soon be home to the world's tallest symbol of transformation. By 2017, the optimism surrounding Jeddah Tower gave way to a climate of uncertainty. In November 2017, the Saudi government launched an anti-corruption crackdown that swept up some of the kingdom's most powerful figures, including the president of the Saudi bin Laden Group, the project's main contractor. Work on the tower stopped almost overnight. Payrolls froze, thousands of workers were sent home, and cranes stood idle above a half-finished core. Emergency calls between company executives and government officials failed to restart operations. For the workforce, many of whom had traveled thousands of miles for steady pay, the abrupt halt meant weeks of waiting in limbo, unsure if wages would ever arrive. The tower's unfinished skeleton became a stark reminder of how quickly political risk can unravel even the boldest plans. Investors grew wary as payments stalled, and legal disputes flared over missed milestones. For Jeddah, the project's pause cast a shadow over the city's economic future, raising questions about whether such grand ambitions could survive the country's shifting priorities. As the years dragged on, a new threat arrived. The COVID-19 pandemic swept across Saudi Arabia in 2020, shutting down construction sites nationwide. Any hope for a quick restart faded as global supply chains fractured and oil prices collapsed. By 2022, the tower's concrete shell still loomed above the coast, but progress had ground to a halt. What began as a symbol of transformation now stood silent, caught between ambition and the realities of a world in crisis. In 2023, the story of Jeddah Tower took a decisive turn. Behind closed doors in Riyadh, a new powerhouse consortium assembled, anchored by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. Their commitment came with more than just capital: government-backed loan guarantees, direct oversight, and a clear mandate to break the project's long silence. International firms, including Turner Construction and Dar Al Handasa, were brought back into the fold, joined by engineering specialists who had helped shape the world's most ambitious skylines. Contracts were rewritten, risk was redistributed, and performance milestones were sharpened to avoid the pitfalls of the past. With billions in fresh funding secured and legal hurdles cleared, the groundwork was laid for a full-scale restart. The government's role shifted from distant sponsor to active steward, signaling that this time, the tower's fate would not hinge on private fortunes alone. As new cranes arrived and crews returned to the site, the unfinished core began to stir with activity. For Saudi Arabia, the relaunch was more than an engineering update. It was a public statement that the dream of Jeddah Tower still belonged at the center of the nation's future. The world's tallest ambition was no longer on hold. Momentum, once lost, had returned. At the center of Jeddah Tower's ambition stands a feat of engineering that defies precedent. Adrian Smith, plus Gordon Gill Architecture, together with Thornton Tomasetti, set out to design a structure that could rise 1 kilometer above the Red Sea coast, a height no building has reached before. The solution begins deep underground, where 270 piles, each stretching up to 110 meters, anchor the tower into layers of rock beneath the city's porous coral soil. The foundation alone demanded over 900,000 tons of specially formulated concrete, mixed to resist both the salt air and the relentless Saudi heat. Above ground, the tower's Y-shaped plan is not just for aesthetics. This three-winged form, inspired by desert leaves, breaks up the wind and channels forces down through the core, allowing the building to withstand powerful gusts that would topple a lesser structure. Wind tunnel tests ran for months, shaping every curve and taper. Concrete is pumped to heights never attempted, requiring custom high-pressure systems and constant monitoring to prevent cracks from rapid temperature changes. Vertical transport is no less ambitious. More than 59 elevators, some double-decked and capable of speeds over 10 meters per second, will move residents, workers, and visitors between homes, offices, hotels, and sky gardens stacked hundreds of meters above the ground. The glass and aluminum facade, engineered to flex with the wind and shield against sand and heat, will wrap the tower in a shimmering skin. Every detail, from the deepest pile to the tip of the spire, is calculated to make the impossible stand solid. At the base of Jeddah Tower, the scale of ambition can be measured in sweat and resolve. During peak construction, more than 10,000 workers from across Asia and the Middle East labored in rotating shifts, braving temperatures that sometimes soared past 50 degrees Celsius. The work rarely stopped. Night crews poured concrete and set steel under floodlights, while day teams pressed on with the cladding and interior fit-outs, pausing only for mandated rest breaks and water. Every floor added meant another logistical challenge, another round of safety drills, and for some, another week spent far from home. The story of the workforce is changing too. Recent years brought new reforms. Wages must now be paid electronically and on time, and workers have the right to switch jobs or leave the country without employer permission. These reforms, introduced in 2021, have started to ease the most punishing aspects of migrant labor, though gaps remain, especially for subcontracted crews who still report delays and disputes. Among the ranks of engineers, a quiet milestone has taken root. For the first time, female Saudi architects and project managers are present on the core team. One young engineer, featured in local business journals, describes her work on the tower as both a personal achievement and a sign of doors opening across the country. Her presence on site stands as proof that the tower's story is not just about steel and concrete, but about the people, men and women, reshaping what is possible in Saudi Arabia. Jeddah's waterfront is transforming in the shadow of the tower. Where fishing boats once dotted the coast, construction crews now work around the clock to build out 5.3 million square meters of district promised as Jeddah Economic City. New roads, bridges, and green corridors stretch outward from the tower's base, designed to connect future residents and workers to a city that barely existed on maps a decade ago. For urban planners, the ambition is to create a modern ecosystem, one where homes, offices, hotels, and retail spaces rise together, anchored by the world's tallest spire. Yet the scale of change is drawing scrutiny. Environmental experts warn that the dredging and land reclamation needed for this new district could threaten the Red Sea's fragile coral reefs, an irreplaceable natural asset for Jeddah. Official reviews acknowledge the risk, but detailed public studies remain elusive. Market analysts are cautious. The project's own forecasts call for just 60% occupancy in the first years after completion, echoing the slow starts seen in other Gulf megaprojects. Some fear that the rush to fill luxury towers could leave swaths of empty glass and steel, even as housing demand elsewhere in Jeddah remains unmet. Still, the city's boosters point to the momentum. As of 2025, the tower has passed its 70th floor, with completion targeted for 2028. Whether the district thrives or struggles, the transformation along Jeddah's coast is already underway. Today, glass and steel climb skyward as Jeddah Tower rises once more. Its future, like Saudi Arabia's transformation, remains unfinished. In a world racing for height and spectacle, the real test is whether ambition can build not just icons, but enduring communities. That answer will shape the skyline and the legacy.